Okay, so I first got interested in hydrogen gas therapy based on that original article that came out in Nature in 2007, which was, it was put out by a researcher in Japan, a PhD, who discovered that hydrogen had some very unique properties, and it seemed to have cellular rejuvenative properties in terms of not just treating disease, but actually just enhancing the health of human cells. And so the article explained how hydrogen is sort of the perfect electron donor, and I'll go into that in just a moment. Its primary thrust was in oxidative stress. Okay, so in the understanding of cellular respiration, oxidation reduction reactions happen in the body all the time, but the response of oxygen and its reactions creating free radicals is what is thought to create aging and disease. Okay, so for a long time they have been trying to search out, saying, okay, if you have too much oxidation, as we get older we have too much oxidation, it leads to genetic damage in the DNA and it can lead to cancer, things like that. And so, well, then we've got to increase antioxidants. So vitamin C was the first one that they looked at, which was Linus Pauling back in the 70s, and that was a big vitamin C thing. Well, all of the research on antioxidants kind of failed because there are good oxidants and there are bad oxidants in the body. And so like vitamin E and vitamin C were not selective antioxidants. And what they did was they stopped and squelched the good oxidative reactions. So when you exercise, you have good free radicals that are produced that signal your body to produce good things like sodium oxide demulsification and glutathione. Those are endogenous, your own body's antioxidants, okay? So you don't want to squelch certain free radicals, but there are other ones in the body, such as peroxynitrite and the hydroxy radicals, that don't have any positive purposes. And what hydrogen was found is it's a selective antioxidant, meaning it really negates those really bad antioxidants, but it doesn't affect the positive ones. So there's a lot of positive oxidants in the body that do positive things, and you don't want to stop them. So we don't want to stop the positive things of exercise. We don't want to stop the other positive free radicals. So the first thing that he noticed is that hydrogen gas was a selective antioxidant. What hydrogen is two molecules of the atom of hydrogen. Two atoms together create a molecule. It's the smallest molecule in the world, okay? Hydrogen is the first element on the periodic table. It has one proton and it has one electron, okay? So it has a unique characteristic in that it can get into the deepest tissues of the body very fast because it diffuses through the cell membrane. It's neither what we call hydrophobic or hydrophilic, meaning that it does not be repelled or attracted to either fat soluble like cell membranes or water soluble aspects. So it dissolves in the body very, very rapidly. And when you look at the cell, the human cell, respiration in the human cell is basically oxidative phosphorylation, which takes a molecule of glucose and it takes off its hydrogens, and the hydrogens go into the electron transport chain, and the protons go through the what's called ATP synthase, and it produces ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency of your body. Everything in your body runs on ATP, okay? So the more efficiently you produce ATP, and the fewer dangerous free radicals that are produced, equals good cellular health, okay? As we age, our energy systems plummet, and so almost all diseases have in common the fact that we produce less energy, cellular energy, as we age, okay? We produce less ATP, and we generate a lot of, or we accumulate the damage of these free radicals over time, okay? So it alters our all the processes in our body. In fact, most of the diseases that we have are listed, we're kind of coming to a common denominator that the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, okay, is the common denominator in most diseases, that when the power generation of that mitochondria drops, the other diseases come up, whether it's cancer, heart disease, or whatever it is. So mitochondrial respiration, which is that it takes those electrons and protons from hydrogen and produces the energy, and it does it efficiently when we're younger because our bodies are youthful. They don't have all the damage of older ages. But these free radicals that are produced in the process, it's like respiration is a lot like the energy in your car. It burns gasoline, okay? It's a hydrocarbon. It's an oxidative phosphorylation reaction, just like what your body does with glucose and sugars, because everything is broken down into sugars basically and burned in your mitochondria, and it has waste products, and they're free radicals, okay? These free radicals then damage. Your body produces its own antioxidants. Major ones are glutathione and superoxide demulsification, okay? And so your body squelches those, okay? But as you get older, you can't, okay? So the more free radicals and the more all down regulation of your energy systems, it alters your immune system, it alters your repair system, it alters just about everything in your body. So let's say it's your immune system. You will transfer more to an inflammation part to your immune system, which is the innate response, versus the humoral, which is the antibody response. That we just saw that in COVID, which people died of sepsis, which is the inflammatory reaction that you get when you first get colds, which is your mucus and your fever and all that stuff that hits first, and then your antibody response comes on second, which is the tagging of these viruses or bacteria or whatever you're going to do. And so it has a secondary effect in cleaning up. And so then you build that immunity because your body remembers that, and the next time you're exposed, you've got that memory, and you don't have to go through that first innate response because your secondary one just kicks right in and gets rid of those few things. So people die because they were hyper-inflammatory, okay? So hyperinflammation is the common denominator in almost all diseases, okay? We know cancer produces more inflammation. It's how it metastasizes. Heart disease, thrombosis, all of these diseases are diseases of inflammation and decreased cellular energy. Cancer is a disease of decreased cellular energy. So it's a disease of aging, mostly, okay? Cancer rates go up as you get older. And what it really is that there was a researcher way back in the 20s called Otto Warburg, and now he's getting the credit for understanding cancer as a disease of respiration. And so it's called the Warburg metabolism. Actually, they named it after him, that all cancer has in common. And it's basically we're thinking is it's an older evolutionary response before our current day cell. The theory is that the cell synergistically coupled with a different kind of a cell, and the other cell says, we'll make the power in the cell and you do everything else, and they married together and they produce this interesting cell where they've got a mitochondria which has its own DNA, and then we have a cell that has your DNA in it, okay? So, but before there was the mitochondria, there was another type of respiration that was a fermentation process of sugars, and that all cancers fermentate glucose instead of respire it in the same way with oxygen, okay? So we know that's the common denominator in all cancers, okay? So as the power generation goes down, we think cancer is a response saying, hey, we've got this other backup mechanism here that is survival. It's going to give us a chance to survive instead of die, because we have a thing called autophagy that is basically programmed cell death. When a cell is under stress, it's supposed to program itself to kill itself. But autophagy sometimes doesn't happen, and it reprograms itself to this Warburg metabolism, and that's what cancer is. Okay, so Otto Warburg was an interesting character. He was a Jew that actually Hitler allowed to stay in Germany, and he got really railroaded in this. He got the Nobel Prize in the late 20s, but he should have gotten more Nobel Prizes, and the scientific community railroaded him because they said he was collaborating with Hitler, and he really wasn't. And his whole lab was the world's leading lab in the 30s and 40s on cancer. And Hitler's mom died of cancer, so he was paranoid about cancer. So he allowed Warburg to stay in Germany, and all of his staff, all the best scientists were Jews, including Einstein. But Einstein came to the United States, that worked in his lab, and he had a lab in both biology and physics that was the world's leading cancer. So then he immigrated to the United States after World War II, but the scientific community kind of ostracized him because of his staying in Germany. They didn't understand why, because he felt if he would have left Germany, they would have just killed all his staff, okay? And he knew that Hitler was this paranoid freak about cancer, so he elected to stay there. So anyway, we know that when power goes down in the cell, it gets unhealthy, it can become cancerous, it should die, your body switches, a lot of things bad happen as you get older. You get the acceleration of these aging goes up, okay? So hydrogen is basically the basic unit of respiration. It is what we have here in hydrogen gas. And the politics of something like this are interesting, because if you could have there's no industry out there that is promoting hydrogen use, okay, because it's so cheap and it's so readily available. So what happens is, the reason you can kind of trust a lot of this research is that these are independent researchers that are not being funded other than just getting grants from the governments or whatever around the world, or universities, and there's no industry saying, hey, we're going to do this research to promote our product, which is almost all what pharmaceuticals and medical is, okay? So, and since 2007, there's now like almost 2,200 published studies on hydrogen therapy in the literature, and it's growing just exponentially every year. There's more and more coming out every year. So I kind of came aware of this as the therapeutic potential around 2013, and there was a guy named Tyler LeBron who started the Institute for Molecular Hydrogen Institute. It's in Utah. It's a nonprofit organization. They coordinate with the research all around the world with universities on hydrogen, and it is a nonprofit, so there's nobody out there, there's no industries saying, they're funding this. This is all independent research. So the studies were coming out so positive, one after another, just tons of really good, and absolutely, they studied it for negative side effects. They cannot even find a negative side effect, so there has been, they've used hydrogen mixed with oxygen since the 40s for deep sea diving, at much higher concentrations than you're using here. The only problem is that concentrations that are high are flammable, so you have to keep the concentrations low. That's because it's a very reactive gas, which actually means it has a lot of energy, which is good. And so what hydrogen does is that it diffuses into the body and it donates electrons, but it does more than that. So electrons squelch. Free radicals are dangerous molecules because they are produced and they react with tissue in your body, okay? So they create damage by non-selectively reacting with tissue, and that's what damages, and that's what, as you get older, you get this non-selective damage, okay? And then you get cellular processes that are poor, such as you can't get the glucose into the cell, which is insulin resistance, so glucose starts to back up, and you start to get all the problems with glucose reacting with your body. There's a lot of things that react that are not good that have to be kept in check. Iron is one, glucose is another, oxygen is another. We need oxygen to survive, but it's also dangerous. It can create these radicals. Glucose you need to survive, but you don't want too much of it. Iron you need to survive, but if it's too high, it's really dangerous. Iodine, if it's, you need it for life, but you get too much and it's a horrible free radical. So, these things have to maintain in a certain zone so that your body doesn't have too much and it can deal with the excesses. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I thought this was a good article to start with, this novel option in human disease. So as you can see, it starts with just describing hydrogen, and go on to the second page, and it goes on to how it sort of works. And you can see that the inflammatory markers of the good inflammation markers that you want go up, and the bad ones you want to go down, such as NRF2 and HO1. Those go up, like tumor necrosis factors, and all the other bad ones like interleukin 6 and stuff go down. So we want this balance of these are cytokines, and so you have good ones and you have bad ones, and so they all serve a purpose, but as we get older, we get too much of the bad ones. We have endoplasmic reticulum stress, and it shows how that decreases. It regulates the mitochondria. We talked about the oxidative phosphorylation reaction in the mitochondria. It regulates your immune regulation between the T1 and T2 balance. I'm not going to talk about that, but that is an actual one where we talk about the innate versus the adaptive immune system, so it regulates that balance. And the antioxidant stress on the body, so it decreases the peroxynitrate free radicals and the hydroxyl free radicals, which have no good purpose in the body. So this article just talks about the mechanism of hydrogen. It's basically doing, you can go on to the next page. It talks about autophagy, okay? Autophagy is cellular cleanup, okay? Your body, as you get older, gets less efficient at cleaning up bad cells, okay? So we want your body to self-digest, okay? So you get older cells and they're supposed to die. They're not supposed to turn into cancer, okay? So they found that people that use a lot of hydrogen have better cellular autophagy. There's lots of good scientific studies on this. It's very well documented. It helps with the circadian clock, and the circadian clock is what regulates almost all the timing in your body. There's good scientific studies on that. There's good ferroptosis, which is regulation of the iron system in the body, which is really important. So you don't want that. And pyroaptosis, anti-apoptosis, you can see that, I'm not going to get into those are very deep subjects, but these are cellular mechanisms in the body that are positively influenced by hydrogen, and they've got well documented research on this. You actually produce a significant amount of hydrogen in your gut. When you break down fiber, it produces hydrogen. As we get older, we produce less hydrogen and especially if you have been on a lot of antibiotics and things like that, your ability, the good bacteria that produce the hydrogen get less. So you actually have hydrogen in your body that it uses for this process all the time. So, and you can go through this article and it talks about each one of those, and then it talks about the preventative and therapeutic applications of hydrogen, and hydrogen on the nervous system, hydrogen on the respiratory system, and I'll go over some other studies here in just a moment. The motor system, the sensory system, the metabolic system, the cardiovascular system, the digestive system, and it lists studies that show what we're talking about, the urinary system, on cancer. And so I'm going to briefly talk about some other studies here in just a moment, but it's pretty amazing that they've actually done good studies on Alzheimer's patients. They've done studies on cancer patients. I got a study here where they actually see remission in people with metastatic cancer just using hydrogen as their only therapy after they've gone through chemo and radiation. These are people that are just kind of like, well, I don't have anything else to do, so I might as well try hydrogen therapy. And about half of them, it put them into remission for a significant period of time. So we know that it has this it's being researched in about 172 disease models, okay? So as the years went on, you can actually get little effervescent capsules and put them in water. So I started using that and I noticed how much better I felt. And so I've used those for many years. It's a kind of an inefficient way to get hydrogen because it's a little bit costlier because you have to put them in water. It's just magnesium, when it reacts with water, it can create hydrogen bubbles. And I especially used it when I traveled because it also, interesting enough, they've done a lot of research on hydrogen gas therapy on ionizing radiation. So when that person is up in an airplane, you're getting a lot more radiation, or people that are exposed to radiation, it significantly dampens the negative effects of that radiation. So anyway, and they've used it in conjunction with chemotherapy because it significantly helps with the nauseousness, but it doesn't seem to negatively affect the chemotherapeutic drugs. Like if you took vitamin C or vitamin E with chemotherapy, it would negate the positive effects because they actually work by upregulating a lot of the damaging or positive oxidative reactions. So you can see going through this metabolic syndrome, okay, which there is a cool, I don't know if I have it here, and everybody is suffering from metabolic syndrome to a certain extent. I mean, so we all become kind of insulin resistant, whether we put on the weight or not. And so there's a study, and I don't know if I've got it here. I can print it out on metabolic syndrome patients, and it lowered their hemoglobin A1C. They had 60 subjects, and 30 of them were in the placebo group and 30 of them were in the hydrogen water. And all they did was drink hydrogen water for 4 months. I don't remember the dosage. Hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker of your blood sugar control over 3 months, went from 5.8 to 5.1 in 4 months, just drinking hydrogen water. That's really better than metformin can do. You know, that's way better. I've never seen a drug get that much difference. Those were in what they call pre-diabetic patients. 5.7 to 6.5 are pre-diabetic patients. They were overweight. They had other significant markers. Their C-reactive protein went down, their triglycerides went down, their cholesterol shifted for the more positive ratios. They had lost weight, versus none of the placebo group did any of that. So we know it was the hydrogen water because they didn't even change their diet. Okay, so that was a very interesting one.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it because they wouldn't normally drink water and they have to drink so much water? You know,
Well, they
that variable.
they gave it to both groups. They had them drink the same amount of water.
Okay.
So they said, okay, you're going to drink this same water, you're going to drink this same water.
Okay.
One's going to be hydrogen, one is not.
Okay.
Okay, so they control for that variable. Okay, so I can print that out for you if you want. So I'm just going to go over some of the research articles. I just kind of put hydrogen-rich water for improvements in mood, anxiety, and autonomic nerve function in daily life. You know, all of these are what we said earlier. They are on PubMed. They are published journal articles that go through the National Institutes for Medicine that have legitimacy. So they're not some just random person. These are usually, I mean, you can see every one of these is out of Japan, Korea, and China are leading the way in terms of its medical usage. If you go to the hospital in China or Japan and have a head injury, you're going to be put on hydrogen gas. If you do it in Korea, if you have a heart attack in Korea, you're going to be put on hydrogen gas in the hospital. But we don't do that here because we don't have any big industries that run everything, such as our big pharmaceutical systems that are promoting this. So when this started coming out, I said, you know, I got to start putting this in my office because the research is just too good. So anyway, so you know, it just enhances the function, the normal function of your body. So, you know, anxiety, depression, neurological diseases. That's what I'm talking about. Head injuries. They've done so many studies on head injuries where a lot of them started out in, unfortunately, animals where they'd actually induce a head injury, and then they would give them hydrogen gas, and they would show that the damage, the sepsis, the inflammatory reaction that happens after the head injury is usually the worst, right? So when you get a concussion, it's the fact that the concussion is still happening for days after that because the inflammation in the brain is doing all the damage. So it downregulates that inflammatory response that is negative, and it helps with the resolving of the inflammatory response. So that's that one. We got tons of these for COVID, okay? Promising adjunctive strategy for the treatment of COVID-19, okay? If you Google molecular hydrogen gas therapy and COVID, you'll come up with a whole mess of good research articles showing where they give people in the hospital hydrogen gas therapy, and what it does is it stops the cytokine storm, okay? So the cytokine storm is what kills you. It's the inflammatory response, because the older people, that's who died, they're more prone to inflammation, they can't stop it. Stopping it is called using chemicals called resolvins. Omega-3 fatty acids are important, vitamin D is important. There was a study that showed that if vitamin D would have been used at the onset of COVID, it could have saved about 1/3 of all the COVID deaths. So that was a very sobering article because of, and they're based on believe it or not, our US military did the study, and it involved something like 600,000 active service people where they gave them vitamin D at the onset of symptoms, and it saved 1/3 of them that would have normally died. Okay, so what it showed was the protective effect of vitamin D. This was not just a hypothetical one, this was a real world study. And so if you can extrapolate that to the world, you know, I mean, that's a huge, and hospitalization was diminished greatly. So, I mean, it was criminal what we did in not using vitamin D when we knew that all these people that were going to the hospital were low on vitamin D. So here's a good article on, here's one on Alzheimer's disease. There's hardly anything that treats Alzheimer's disease, okay? I mean, hydrogen gas therapy does a really good job in terms of slowing its progression and stopping its progression. So it's like it should be almost used universally for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. This one's preventative. And this one here is conventional drugs act as a rifle gun, while hydrogen has a machine gun, meaning that it has all these multi-therapeutic effects. You know, where drugs act on one chemical reaction, hydrogen seems to have all these positive effects. Here's another one for brain disorders. And here's another one for real-world survey of hydrogen-controlled cancer, a follow-up of 82 advanced cancer patients, and it shows how many were put into remission with just hydrogen. There was a study on Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease has a really good human-controlled study where the results were nothing compared, like L-DOPA, like administration of any of these Parkinson's drugs did what hydrogen did in terms of regression and remission of the disease. Athletic performance. If you go onto the Molecular Hydrogen Institute's scientific studies page, it lists them by category. You know, it lists them by bone. I had a dental hygienist in the other day, and she said, was there anything on dental health? And I pulled one up, and it tells periodontal disease. And so, you know, it seems to have this universal anti-aging effect. You were mentioning lasers. Well, lasers work on stimulating the mitochondria, the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, which is cellular respiration. Well, hydrogen is the basis for cellular respiration. The electrons and the protons from hydrogen is what makes energy in that system. So it significantly increases your mitochondrial efficiency, just like the red lasers. So that's why it helps with skin disorders. It's a kind of a universal therapy that has applications in almost all disease models, because all disease models have in common the degradation of cellular respiration as you age, okay? So I thought, okay, you know, the reason nobody's hearing about this is because there's no money in it, okay? Because you could literally buy, everybody I think should buy hydrogen water generators like this, okay? And I have a link on my website, and they're cheap. This is $129, and you can see it's producing hydrogen gas. So I just hydrogenate all of my water that I drink, okay? I think that should be the basis for everybody, because whether you come in and do the gas, okay, there's really three modes of application. One is that water that can be hydrogenated. One is you can breathe the gas, which gets you at a higher level of hydrogen. And the other one is intravenous saline injections, which you can't even get the saline in this country right yet, so it's not even an option, okay? But in Japan, you can go to the hospital and they'll give it to you intravenously, and you know, so we just don't have anybody even marketing that in the United States yet. So there's also these little tablets you can put in water, and this is much more efficient because you buy one of these, and it has a charger in it. You just charge it once, and it'll give you like 20. You can do this like 20 times, and before you have to even charge it, you can take it on. I took it on my airplane last time I went to Florida, and basically all you do is you just, and you want to drink it fairly quickly. Doesn't change the taste one bit, and you're getting a very good dosage of hydrogen, okay?
Speaking of dosages, with all those in common, with all this summary of everything, what is the consensus of therapeutic?
There is no consensus of dosage yet. And I'll tell you.
And mode, like with the gas versus the liquid.
This, the gas is going to get a higher level into your bloodstream than this, but this will affect the GI system more, okay, because it's going through the gastrointestinal system, okay? So, if you have more of a respiratory disorder or a really serious disease, I would really recommend doing both, because I have a guy that's doing it now. He has advanced cancer, and I don't treat the cancer, but you can come in and use the hydrogen because, you know, anybody can buy a hydrogen unit for home. Okay, it's not something that is even. The one I have is they're doing it for FDA approval because there's not an FDA approved medical device in this country yet. In Japan, Korea, China, there are, but you know, so because it's so new, and because there is not a big, huge industry behind it, like a pharmaceutical industry, because you can buy your. I mean, you know, the units for these gas units run between $2,500 and $5,000. Okay, so they're not tremendously expensive, but most people don't want to jump into them unless they've done it for a while and really want to just keep doing it at home. So, you know, this is a really cheap way to get good hydrogen in your body. Okay, the gas units as we get older, actually some of these people, if you work on a computer all day, they just breathe the gas all day long because it's a mixture of oxygen and hydrogen, and there's no side effects, and you just feel better. But I move around, I can't do that all day. So, but if a person was sitting on a computer, I would certainly do that. So I try to do it a little bit in the morning and before bed, things like that with the gas, and then I drink the water all day long. And you know, that's my application. So you're never, you know, you're going to see more and more of this because the research is too good for hospitals to ignore, for clinics to ignore. It's just not, I will tell you that this is what frustrates me is doctors get out of school, and they never pick up a journal, and their information that they read is only given by salespeople that come by their office. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, I know that for a fact. I'm kind of a nerd where I seek out these things. You know, the research on this as a alternative, there's nothing out there that I've ever seen that comes to even close to the positive effects. Like, let's say you research a certain vitamin for whatever it is. You know, you're not going to see research like this. I mean, it's going to be like, well, yeah, there's some positive effects, might be some negative things, and we don't know about these and that. This is like, there's not even a single study that shows there's a danger to it. And number two, there's not a single study that's out there that doesn't show some positive aspects to it. So it's like, oh gosh, if that's the case, you know, I need to at least be telling patients that people are trying to get well, they're trying to repair their system, you know, and it's cheap, you know, so I'm not going to be making tons of money on this, you know, but, you know, I'm just trying to get it. I mean, I only charge $20 to $25 for using it for an hour of the gas, which is not making me rich, you know, I'm not doing it for that. So I'm not going to get rich on these because I just don't link to the company that sells them. I just try to find out the ones that will give the best deal to people, so I put it on my website. So I just think that I'm trying to promote the usage of hydrogen gas as a therapy for anti-aging, whatever disease you have, prevention of diseases like cancer and heart disease. The theoretical applications that way seem to be endless. So that's why I just was, you know, and there was quite a few more people that were going to come, but that's okay. I just decided to just say, okay, do this. And I can't do this type of talk with every patient coming in. Does that make sense? So that's why. And you can go on to PubMed and put in hydrogen gas therapy, or you can just Google hydrogen gas therapy, and you can differentiate the ones that are the real studies versus the ones that are people saying things. Okay, so if it says National Institutes of Medicine on there, you know it came from that clearinghouse. Okay, and you will be amazed and starting to read the studies that come up on the therapeutic potential of hydrogen gas. So, you know, I hope you found this was kind of interesting. It was meant to be kind of an introduction and why I think everybody should at least do the water and consider doing some gas and whatever you want. I've got links to a gas machine on my website. It's the same one as here, and I've got links to this one.
When would you expect some improvement?
I noticed the very first time I started doing the tablets that I felt better mentally, just better mentally clear-headed. You know, when I drink the water and do the gas, I can go into CrossFit and I just have so much more energy because I do nose breathing in CrossFit, which is really hard, which I'll tape my mouth shut, and I can now almost do those workouts as fast as if I was mouth breathing, because when I started drinking hydrogen, because it decreases the amount of lactate that is produced, and lactate is the waste product of everything that slows you down when you work out, and so I'm not as sore, and since I've been drinking the water, which has only been in the last month since I really started hitting the water, because I decided, this is too good, I'm going to start drinking the water. I've noticed chronic hamstring has improved a lot. My knee doesn't hurt nearly as much as it used to, because I got a meniscus tear in my right knee, so I can do a lot more. I'm not limited by that anymore, and that's only about in a month to 6 weeks of drinking this. So I know myself, it helps me, okay? There's other applications that I'm looking at within my own health. I will say, so I've been doing this about water, maybe two months, I would say. So I did my hemoglobin A1C, and went from 5.5 to 5.3, okay, which is good, and that was just last Friday, I believe I did that. So that, I think, was probably positively changed, because I really haven't changed anything else, So I think you will feel better mentally pretty quickly, or just feel like you've got just better, you're healthier. So, and I'm starting to use it for a lot of my pain patients, so that I want them to experience the benefits and just kind of take note. I'm not really trying to say you have to do it, but I just want to see what the result, because the therapeutic applications for musculoskeletal, you can actually pour the water on your skin. In Japan, they actually have hydrogen spas, and they actually make a hydrogen unit that you can bubble it into your bathtub, so you can get the benefit through your skin, and helps with your skin. So you can absorb hydrogen that way. It's kind of interesting, in Japan they have these hydrogen spas where they'll hydrogenate the water, and then they'll put it on your face and washcloths and things like that for skin care and things. So it's kind of while you're breathing the gas and do that. So it's getting popular, and you're going to see it probably in spas too, because it's a medical gas, but it's not, you don't have to be licensed to do it, because it's not really dangerous. I mean, they keep it at concentrations that are not going to blow up. Does that make sense? So, any other questions at all? So.
Well, I just appreciate the science that you gave, and
Yeah.
I don't trust in the big pharma, the medical industry. There's not money to be made. We won't see it in this country, so.
Well, that's
Everything you said to me was very convincing. I've researched a lot of things down through the years, and I'm very much into this kind of health and fitness, and so I'll, nothing
Just
I've
do
really
your own
looked at
research.
before.
Just do your own research. Just Google. You have to do molecular hydrogen gas therapy. Okay. If you just put in hydrogen, you're going to get cars, and you're going to get like that. So it has to be molecular hydrogen therapy at least. Okay. So that they're looking at it as a therapeutic application. So,
Sure.
And then go ahead.
When I came in today, I've done it once, and I asked him, how long, the same question, how long would this take? Because I woke up and I thought, this can't be real that I did that one time. It felt that much better, and so I knew that my mind could be saying that too, but my body, I feel good.
Well, I don't want to use, I think the power of suggestion can be
Yeah.
very powerful, so I'm not trying to convince people that they're going to be like a hypnotic thing, okay? That's why I show these research articles, because you can't really fake blood work, I mean, if you have a placebo-controlled study, and even though some of these studies are on the smaller scale, and the reason they're on the smaller scale is money, because if you have a pharmaceutical company putting millions of dollars, that's a different story, but these are done at universities where their research budgets are small, so they're all out of universities. I mean, they're not like but you cannot see a study of 500,000 people, without a lot, well, actually, nobody does a study of 500,000 people, even with pharmaceuticals. The last, the initial Pfizer COVID study was only on like 1,200 people, which was ridiculous because it lasted all of 2 months. So, I mean, they can do retrospective studies on large amounts of people, and they can do like a military, the vitamin D, they can do in a large amount of people because they've got that patient base there. But even pharmaceutical studies are never millions of people. So, but it actually, it tells me it's way more legitimate knowing there's not an industry profiting from it, you know? I mean, nobody's
Absolutely.
making tons of money off of hydrogen therapy. So, I'm not gonna become a millionaire. So anyway, that's why, on this, so, you know, that's why I wanted to just be kind of like a lone voice, is I can't affect the world, you know, I can affect people here, and I just see no negative side effects, and I see only upsides with hydrogen. So, anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yay!